Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off, because today I'll be taking a first look and paging through Dungeons and Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 6, The Temple of Elemental Evil from Goodman Games. And we will dive on into this 2-volume set right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Our old school for the New Year's celebration continues. As all week long, I have been taking a look at the Dungeons and Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated series from Goodman Games. On my live show, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, which airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube, I've taken a look at Volume 1, Into the Borderlands, Volume 2, The Isle of Dread, and Volume 3, Expedition into the Barrier Peaks. Then I've also uploaded standalone videos. So I've shared Volume 4, The Lost City, and yesterday I uploaded Volume 5, Castle Amber. So that means today I will be taking a look at the final available volume, which is Volume 6 of Dungeons and Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated, The Temple of Elemental Evil from Goodman Games. The original adventures were designed by Gary Gygax and Frank Metzger. This 5e conversion is provided by Chris Doyle, Rick Maffei, and Tim Wadzinski. The 732-page 2-volume set carries an MSRP of $99.99. Let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got the first volume of The Temple of Elemental Evil. Few things before we dive on in. Number one, this is not a review copy that was provided by the publisher. I actually received all 6 volumes of the Original Adventures Reincarnated series from someone who follows the Gaming Gang and enjoys my coverage of role-playing games, and they sent these to me to share with you, and they want to remain anonymous. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. In fact, I've had some comments on some of the videos from people saying, man, they must really like your channel. I guess they do. Also, keep in mind, this is not a review. I have not looked into this volume or the second volume whatsoever. All I did was open it up so I could make sure that I took the bookmark out. That's it. I haven't even done that with the second volume when we take a look at that. So, absolutely not a review. What I am going to do is I am going to share a bit of a page through. I'm going to stay up here in the corner, picture in picture. So that means I will be cutting off the upper left portion of the book as we take a peek through. We are also not going to be looking at each and every page either, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in this 2-volume set. I do also want to point out that the set comes with a slipcase, a very nice slipcase as well. All right, let's take a look at the back. Evil Born Anew, a mini campaign that takes characters from level 1 to 7. The village of Hamlet thrives again. Years ago, this quaint village nearly fell prey to a great neighboring evil, the nearby Temple of Elemental Evil. A grand edifice of wickedness was defeated after a great battle and thrown into ruin forever. Or was it? Bandits have started to ride the roads again, and there are other ominous signs afoot. It is whispered that the demonic evil at the heart of the temple was not truly conquered, but merely imprisoned. Even now, agents of evil, malevolent beasts, and far worse creatures are conspiring to return the temple to power and enslave the surrounding lands. Hamlet and the neighboring ruins may hold clues, but not everyone is to be trusted. Surely danger lies hidden in this idyllic region. Sharpen your swords and axes, purchase your iron rations and tinder boxes, and don't forget at least one 10-foot pole. Great adventure awaits those that dare confront the Temple of Elemental Evil. All right, let's jump on in. Oh, that's kind of cool. Nice gateway there. Gateway artwork. Should point out this is just going to be kind of a stream of consciousness sort of video. Nothing is scripted. I'm just going to be taking a look through here. I'm going to share some thoughts as we go through, plus, little anecdotes about my own experience with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons when it came out. I'll be the first to point out that I had T1, Village of Hamlet. I never had the rest because, for one, it was years later that the series actually concluded as one volume. That was T1 through 4. And by that point, we no longer were playing any D&D. So I remember rolling up characters with my best friend, Elliot Miller, at his house. I do want to say that his nephew, Paul, was there as well. And I don't remember ever running it, though. So I think it was one of those cases where we rolled up characters and never played. So, because by that point in time, I was running Call of Cthulhu, and of course, I was a forever game master, still am. And I think T1 may have been the last module I actually bought for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So each of the volumes that we've taken a peek at so far has opened up with some historical content from various people who were involved in the adventure or who were inspired by the adventure in their own game design work. So I see we've got an interview with Jeff Easley, who did loads of artwork for Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. As you can see, did a lot of fantasy and science fiction artwork for various different magazines, including Savage Sword of Conan for Marvel Comics. So it looks like we've got a pretty long interview with him. Yeah, that's a good long interview. All right, so where do we get, what is this here? Aha, so discussion about the original publication and corrections to the original text. Now, one thing that we have seen with especially the first volume in this series, Into the Borderlands, there were different print editions of T1, and they were reproduced in the book. So what we're going to see here is we're going to see the original modules, I guess we'll say, because T1 was separate and then the rest came later. But I don't know if we're going to see multiple printings, because here it says, what follows are scans of the original TSR publications. T1, The Village of Hamlet, went through at least 7 printings. First 3 printings featured monochrome cover art by legend Dave Trampier, and then next 4 featured color art by Jeff D. What follows is a complete scan of the 3rd printing and a cover scan of the 7th printing. After that, we get a complete scan of T1 through 4, Temple of Elemental Evil, which is the 3rd printing. Cool. I like that, because I love the fact that we get the original modules in these volumes, but I did think it was kind of overkill to have every print run reproduced. That I thought was kind of silly. So I'm glad that we're getting the original modules, but we're not seeing each and every minor change that took place. Oh my gosh, I remember this cover. Good old Village of Hamlet. So here it says first of 2 modules. See, now I don't. Well, once again, this is a later edition. I know the one that I had did not say. I don't think it said first of two modules. I really don't. I just think it's a T1 up in the corner. And of course, here we've got the classic font from the old adventures. And it's pretty interesting to see this reproduced as well, because this kind of presentation just would not fly these days. Small font, not a ton of artwork, kind of packed in there. Of course, thankfully, we've got the two columns, so that does make it a little bit easier on the old eyes and brain waves there as well. If you're not familiar with the Temple of Elemental Evil, and as I mentioned, the only part of this that I'm familiar with is the first chapter, T1, the first adventure. Essentially, this is for starting characters. So this would have been, for many people, their first adventure with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules. That said, the player characters make their way. I was just about to start talking about the Moat House, the ruins of the Moat House. This is a very famous image right there. And there are set pieces and encounters at the Moat House that easily lead to total party kills at first level and second level as well. Keeping in mind, remember, this is still old school. So the thought process was weren't going to have balanced encounters. You were going to have encounters where, you know what? Your adventurers better run away if they want to live to see another day. So we get a floor plan of the Inn of the Welcome Wench, which probably would not fly these days as far as the title to an inn. Says, why is this page blank? In the original publication of the Village of Hamlet, several pages were printed blank. The booklet was perforated so the DM could pull out maps. And the opposite sides of those pull-out pages were blank. My gosh, I remember that. So we did have some layouts of some of the locations. One thing that I thought was pretty cool was the Village of Hamlet actually was a kind of like home game for Gary Gygax. So there were all these people who worked for TSR who played in it was kind of like the house campaign. And they really had a lot to do with the history of Hamlet and some of the characters and some of the history behind it. I thought it was really wild when I heard about that. All right, so we get a fold-out map, which I want to say the first time I saw this with these old school adventures, I should say Original Adventures Reincarnated series, was in the last book, Volume 5. I thought that was very cool. I like that, how we've got the gatefold map with some artwork, some new art. These have got to be the wizard and the fighter that the player characters can befriend in Hamlet. I can't remember their names, though. Well, we'll see in a second. So here is the iconic artwork that we got for T1 through 4, the Temple of Elemental Evil. So now we're going to get a reprint of that whole volume. And as you can see, things have changed in the presentation. I think this came out in 85, 86, somewhere around there. I think Village of Hamlet originally came out in 81. If memory serves, I could be absolutely wrong. But now you can see we now have moved on to a 3-column presentation, and we have some read aloud segments as well. So we start seeing a much more modern kind of visual approach to this, as opposed to having all that text kind of just falling all over itself in the first print runs. So here we got the ruins of the moat house. There are some giant frogs right off the bat that can be a real problem for the player characters. There's a rotted drawbridge that can also cause some issues for the players too if they're not paying attention. I'll tell you what, as a starting adventure for the player characters, they will certainly learn how to play old school by visiting the moat house, that's for sure. So I have never read this other stuff. I have never read T2, 3, or 4, but I do understand that there is another village, but the Nulb, and that village is pretty run down, and it's got some really shady characters. And of course, this is closer to the location of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So then we get into part 3, which is the Temple of Elemental Evil, or at least the dungeons of the temple. And then I think the final portion of the adventure takes the player characters into various different realms, different planes, if I remember correctly. Like I said, I have never read through the T2, 3, or 4. So it looks like we've got quite a large dungeon as far as the temple. I think that T1 through 4, the Temple of Elemental Evil, I think probably clocked in around, I think it's more than 64 pages, because I don't think they were 16 pages per chapter. Like you would see a lot of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules that came out, especially early. They'd have about 16 pages, and they kind of jumped to 32, which was like, oh my gosh, that's huge. I think this was probably about 100 and, oh, right here. They got page count. I was going to say, I would guess probably about 124 pages. So what did we end up with here? So we got our new monsters. 128. And then we have a booklet, which would have included maps, probably some handouts as well. As you can see, the Church of St. Cuthbert and the inn and the, well, not the trader's establishment, but we see that these are more of a 3D presentation for the maps. Okay. And this is no doubt, this is the Temple of Elemental Evil here with the various different levels. There we go. So that's right. So the player characters end up fighting all these various different elementals. They go to various different elemental like planes. And there we have it. So next we move into the 5th edition conversion of the adventure. And what I have loved so far in the series is just how much more has been added to each of these adventures. It would have been easy for Goodman Games to just say, okay, well, you know what? Just do a 5e port and leave it at that. What I've seen so far is that there is tons and tons of additional gaming content. So keeping in mind that we're looking at 732 pages for the 2 volumes together, we're now into an overview of the adventure. So now we're moving into the 5e conversion. We're on page 225. Granted, we're probably going to see maybe 50 pages or more devoted to new monsters, new magic items, and things like that. But we're getting tons of new content as well. So here we've got discussion of the world of Greyhawk. Oh, that's kind of a reproduction of the original map from Hamlet to Nolb. Yes, and it's in the what is he? I think he's the Count of Verbonbonk. Is the ruler. So we got Village of Hamlet. Got some new artwork. The Village of Hamlet is pretty detailed as well. In fact, I know some folks have felt that the village is actually a bit overwhelming in its detail, where each of the locations, each of the homes and everything is described as, who lives there, and they're not all named. All the NPCs aren't named, at least in the original one. I wouldn't be shocked to see them all named here. So they kept the name, the Inn of the Welcome Wench. How about that? That's interesting. And it looks like the map really hasn't changed much. But of course, we get a little additional artwork like we get with the Dungeon Crawl Classics maps that I've seen. There's the Trader's Establishment. If I remember correctly, I think Dave Arneson played in this. Dave Arneson had some design influence on this as well, because I think at some point he was drawing like viewpoint kind of looks, and I think he did like a viewpoint sketch of the Trader's Establishment for some strange reason. So we've got the key to the Church of St. Cuthbert. And now, of course, obviously, the presentation is much easier on the eyes than we had in the original module there. Okay, so we've got a hex map there, our overland map, some locations in the region. We've got some encounters. We've got some wilderness encounters as well. The Knoll Ring Fort. So this area around Hamlet and Nolb and the temple are going to be kind of filled in, it looks like. There's the ruins of elemental evil. So here I just saw scaling the encounters. There should be little need to scale encounters in this section for a group of first and second level characters. Would first and second level characters be at the ruins? On a side note, I always heard that Monty Cook's, is it Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil? Is a really good campaign. I always heard that was pretty interesting. It's supposed to take place like 10 years after this. Right, so we get all our handouts here and more maps. And something that I have mentioned as I've taken a look at each of these volumes is that I think these might be a little tricky to use at the table. There are no PDFs available for these, nor will there be PDFs available for these Original Adventures Reincarnated. I believe that's from Wizards of the Coast. It is not from Goodman Games. I believe Wizards of the Coast, part of the agreement was that there would be no PDFs of this. So I've had, I want to say, I think it was Clint had commented on one of the videos saying that they've got a couple of these books and they've been running it at the table. And what they do is they actually take a picture with their phone and then send it to the players. So I thought, okay, that was cool. Or they upload it to kind of I think it's like the group's Discord so everybody can look at it. I thought, hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea. But as the game master, it's probably a little tough. I would think you would need to take some photos and have those available to you. But still, I really definitely dig what I've seen so far from all 6 volumes so far Okay, so that's the end of the first volume. Now let's take a look at the second volume. We're going to jump on in here. And there we have, once again, that iconic artwork from the original T1, Village of Hamlet. And we will jump right on in. So we get a duplication of the table of contents. Yes, we do. So this picks right up where the other volume left off. That's cool. I like that. So that way, your table of contents, so it's like, okay, so I want to find the first level of the Temple of Elemental Evil dungeon, 384. So it's not like, oh, volume 1 on this page, volume 2 on this page. It's just consistent throughout. So here's the first level right here. Start off with our new map. All right, kind of zipping along here. The Temple of Fire. I know a lot of people have considered the Temple of Elemental Evil to be a highlight of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Adventures. Like I said, I only owned T1, so I really can't say. But it looks like we have got a lot going on here. And this is going to keep your players occupied for a very long time. The Pleasure Chamber. The following creatures are here. 15 patches of yellow mold, 9 violet fungi, 5 patches of green slime, 10 gray oozes, 8 ochre jellies, and 6 black puddings, and they are used as furniture. That's pretty wild. Kind of zipping on through. Now it looks like we're into the elemental nodes. Oh, there we go. Introduction to the nodes of elemental evil right there. Oh. Looks like spells have different effects. Spell variations. Oh, it's just talking about variation of spells, period, not just because of the elemental nodes. Okay. I'm going to take a guess we're going to see a good chunk of additional content after this, after we look at the nodes. It's the Hidden Grotto. No, maybe not. Maybe it was already included. Okay, so we got to page 583 with the actual adventure. And what did we jump in on? About page 220 something? So we're looking at a good 350 pages or so is the new 5e conversion. That is a lot of excellent content. So we got the deities, demigods, and demonesses ready to play characters. I've seen ready to play characters in a few of these volumes, not every one. Or maybe I just missed them. Okay, so we've got our new monsters and NPCs. So our NPCs are included in here as well. As we can see, we've got a lot. There we go. Here's the new monsters. So these were, oh, just characters. Okay. So here's our new monsters. I got to be honest, looks like we've got a little bit more artwork with the new monsters than we've seen in some of the volumes. I mean, there's always some artwork, but it just seems like we've got quite a few more images for the various different creatures here. minor fire elementals. New items in Magic. Well, that's kind of cool. We get some artwork here of the a fall shark and the glaive. Love it because a lot of times people had no idea what these things were. Gary Gygax loved his pole arms. He was a big pole arm fan. That's why in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons you've got all these different pole arms, and people were like, "What the hell is that?" Okay, so those were all magical items, some new magical items. Then we've got our handouts. I always thought that the symbol for the temple was kind of a takeoff on the Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I don't know where I get that idea. And funny enough, in case you didn't know this, Gary Gygax did not like the Lord of the Rings. In fact, when there were newspaper articles and stuff like that about Dungeons and Dragons, almost always they would bring up the Lord of the Rings, and he hated that they did that. And then we finish up with a glossary, and here ends volume 2. And then we got 5th edition fantasy, which is a lineup of adventures that Goodman Games makes for 5e, and then of course they do the really fun and kind of gonzo Dungeon Crawl Classics. There we go. And then we get the T1 artwork that Jeff D did. And of course, he did the back as well. So there you have the 2 volumes of Dungeons and Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated, the Temple of Elemental Evil. Let's swing on over to the other camera. I am going to have a review of this 2-volume set by the end of the month. My game plan is to have all 6 of these volumes. Well, I shouldn't say volumes. All 6 of these releases, because there's 2 volumes in this, all reviewed by the end of the month. I am almost done with volume 1 into the Borderlands. So stay tuned. That'll be, of course, I'll review them in order as well. Gotta say, this looks really, really cool. I am looking forward to diving on into this and reading it. Now, I know there are some people out there who are kind of thrown by the $99.99 MSRP for the 2-volume set, especially considering that all the previous volumes go for $49.99. Well, you got to remember, you're looking at almost 750 pages of content. But if you are looking to save a few dollars, let me point out that I have seen this slipcase set on Amazon, depending on when it is, right? Because I saw it during the holiday season. I think it was $60. Now I think it's around 70-ish. So definitely, if you are looking to pick this up and you need to save a few bucks, take a peek at Amazon.com. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It will not only let you know when I upload videos such as this, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives to hang out with this goofball as I take a peek at games of all types. And of course, till I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.